Hello, I'm the real life fake wizard. Something has gone wrong with the stories coming out of Hollywood. Obviously, that's not like breaking news, but after the last week or so, I have a better idea of how to diagnose where things are actually going wrong. And more particularly, we find it in the controversial battlefield of, and I can't believe I'm saying this, the Super Mario Galaxy movie, which opened on April 1st, 2026 to $373 million worldwide in its first weekend. It became the highest grossing animated film of the year within days. Critics describe it as substanceless, calling it the cinematic equivalent of empty calories, a stimulus without substance. Ugh. Critics are so out of touch. They have no idea who regular people are or what regular people want. The film is so torturous to sit through and, for me, provoked periods of actual physical discomfort. I had to stab myself repeatedly in the hand with a pen to distract from the howling distress. See, at this point, it's hard for us to take any critics seriously because if a film does not fit the critics' criteria of being Shakespearean art or meet their personal ideological prerogatives, then they just delegitimize the entire film. So going into this conversation, we can't take them seriously. Everything they say is bought and paid for, they pull their punches, so they're compromised. Or they are biased to a point of disingenuous destruction for personal validation. Regardless of critical appeal, though, Mario Galaxy cleared nearly $400 million in a single weekend. So it's doing something right. It's appealing to general audiences. Children and parents showed up and in enormous numbers. Now, as I said earlier, regardless of critical acclaim, this film is a battleground of controversy. On one hand, you have people who love it for the roller coaster ride that it is, and on the other hand, you have people saying that there was hardly any character development. There was no earned growth. There was no meaningful resolutions, and the reality is, both of these tribes are correct. The Super Mario Galaxy movie is a 7 out of 10 roller coaster ride theme park attraction of a film. It's fun, it's visually stimulating, and filled with fan service Easter eggs, and yet, yeah, it's got a light cough of a story. The only one with character development happens to be Bowser, which is funny on its own. And all of that is okay for what it is and what it was meant to be. This movie is a commercial for Nintendo products in the same way Masters of the Universe was a toy commercial. You can have fun and enjoy this movie for what it is. Kids can enjoy this for what it is. But because of the proof of audience reception, the fact that you have thousands and thousands of families going back to theaters for this, and, well, this is the only thing they're seeing. In the past, of all the family movies in theaters, families might have seen 3 or 4 movies a year, and maybe 1 or 2 of those were just toy commercials. The rest were entirely legitimate with the intention of telling good stories first and selling merch second. Today, families might see 1 or 2 movies in theaters a year, and both of those movies would be theme park toy commercial movies, like Mario Galaxy, like Minecraft, and like SpongeBob. You know, C.S. Lewis once wrote that a children's story that is enjoyed only by children is a bad children's story. By that measure, the dominant children's films of the 2020s fails the test. The question worth asking is why the industry that once produced films like The Lion King, The Iron Giant, Prince of Egypt, Shrek 2, and Pokémon the first movie now treats family entertainment as a delivery vehicle for visual stimulation and nothing else. It's as if everything needs to be some kind of adolescent hybrid of Teletubbies meets Jackass. And the outcome of that is the stories that are being consumed, not just by audiences of children, but parents too, are hollow amusements and not anything worth thinking about the moment the credits roll. My friends, Hollywood has killed all the writers. Today's indie game shoutout is Tangy TD, a strategic tower defense. Place class-based towers, equip them with items that grant powerful abilities, and create unique builds that deal ridiculous amounts of damage. To learn more about this and hundreds of other indie games, visit our free indie game discovery network, fakeportal.com, or scan the QR code on your screen. Now back to the video. The claim that family films used to contain genuine substance is not Nostalgia, okay? Wizard, you just missed the way things felt in the past. Yeah, well, that might be true, but two things can be true at once. Sure, you can miss the way things were before, but if you pay attention at all to the context of stories being told today, you will see they are devoid of values. They're missing things that stick with you. They're not art. There's no reason to care or consider or even attempt to empathize with the position these characters are put in. Every single film is a paint-by-numbers attempt to make quick cash on spectacle where there is no substance. And this is verifiable now. Consider the films that defined family entertainment across the 1980s, the 1990s, and the 2000s. They weren't trying to be art house films necessarily. Many of them were there for product placement, sure, but they still had stories to tell. Pokémon the first movie from 1998 existed to promote Game Boy cartridges, trading cards, and most importantly, Burger King kids meals. Transformers the movie was engineered to retire old toys and introduce new ones. That was the whole point of that film. The Lion King was a merchandising juggernaut before it was perceived as a cultural landmark. Commerce was an engine, and yet substance was very much still present. The Iron Giant built its entire climax around a moral choice that was heart-wrenching for audiences of all ages. You are what you choose to be. And the giant chose Superman. Mulan succeeds through discipline and cleverness she develops over the course of the film. She is physically outmatched by every soldier in the army, yet wins by learning from and outsmarting every opponent. Hercules, Spirited Away, Prince of Egypt, Toy Story 1, Toy Story 2, The Land Before Time, The Goonies, even Princess Diaries, dude. These films carried weight because they respected the audience enough to let characters fail, suffer, and earn a resolution. They actualized articulable values about sacrifice and discipline and grief, responsibility, exploring the cost of becoming who you need to be. Audiences of all ages walked out of any one of these films carrying something to ponder. That's what made them good. Were they safe? Sure, maybe they were safe. But even being safe, even being designed on the premise of selling merch and toys, they forced viewers to sit with discomfort, process it, and then build a psychological architecture that would be carried with them into their lives. This is mythology. This is why storytelling is so important to human beings. Stories are how we transmit values across generations. Before there were books, before there were screens, there were campfires and cave walls. Every civilization that has ever existed understood that the way you teach a people what virtues like courage and sacrifice and responsibility demands is through stories. You see, in this moment, we're discussing philosophy. But you don't necessarily teach concepts like this by talking about them. You teach people by showing them, by giving them things to think about. I can tell you why looking out for each other and taking care of yourself and your community is a good thing. But that's just me telling you. You don't really emotionally connect with that. Stories are presented as a means to show you what those values are in execution and why you should care. And perhaps how you can empathize to impart these values in your own life. This is why I loathe the idea of people copping out and saying things like, oh, it's just a kid's movie. Mario is a kid's movie. Star Wars is for kids. Adults need to stop having critiques of movies that are for kids. Poppycock, you buffoon. The real reason why there are so many normal folks that are critical of modern movies and TV and stories is not necessarily because of any one particular thing. Normie folks know in their bones, even when they can't express it themselves, that something is wrong. It's like an instinct. Stories of today don't even have the basic function of being, in any way, empathetic of the human experience. Well, actually, C.S. Lewis diagnosed this decades ago. He wrote that inherent morality in children's stories, or really stories in general, come from whatever the spiritual roots are of the author and based on the impacts of their life. Organic morality in literature stems from an author's depth for life. You can try being superficial and preachy, but it's not going to work, and people will have a hard time connecting with it. In today's era, writers are taught from a young age that they need to overlay their own ideological philosophies and beliefs on top of things that don't have or don't share in those philosophies. In fact, Lewis warned about this, quote, "If the pictures don't show you any moral, don't put one in. For the moral you put in is likely to be a platitude or even a falsehood skimmed from the surface of your consciousness. It is impertinent to offer the children that." Interesting. Impertinent is the key word here. It's disrespectful. Lewis is saying that you cannot fake depth. If the person writing the stories has not lived with hard questions and has not truly battled with loss and failure and grief and what it actually costs to become a decent human being, then the stories written by these people will not contain those things. You cannot graft meaning onto a story from post-production color grading. Either people telling the stories and making these films have something real to say drawn from the weight of their life experience and conviction, or they don't. And if they don't, whatever morals they stick on the ending will ring hollow. Kids will feel it even if they can't name it. Kids are not as stupid as the media wants parents to believe, and adults will experience these flaws like nails on a chalkboard, but will still say, well, I guess it was fine. This is the difference between a film that says you are what you choose to be and a film that says the power was inside you all along. The dominant narrative formula in today's modern filmmaking can be reduced down to a single trope. The power was inside you all along. This resolution has become the default. In Thor Ragnarok, Thor's hammer is shattered, and a vision of Odin tells him the hammer was never his source of strength, it was always inside him. In Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers' entire arc is the removal of a limiter placed on her by the Kree. The power was always hers. In Moana 2016, the ocean chooses her. Her arc resolves through identity realization and not any kind of earned skill. In Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, America Chavez spends the entire film unable to control her abilities. But in the climax, Doctor Strange tells her to believe in herself, and she immediately demonstrates precision mastery. The power was inside her all along. The Super Mario Galaxy movie also shares in this narrative. Princess Peach discovers that she and Rosalina are sisters made from stardust, both born with innate superpowers. Her arc resolves through the revelation that she was cosmically super by birthright, and the power was inside her all along. In isolation, these films are ordinary and they're unremarkable. Tropes repeat across eras, that's nothing new. The problem found here is saturation. When the default resolution for modern stories becomes, you are already special and just need to realize it, the cumulative message to children and audiences of all ages is dangerous for expanding minds. Greatness is innate. There is nothing worth striving towards because you are already perfect just the way you are. A message like this has measurable consequences. Carol Dweck's research at Stanford has spent 4 decades examining how beliefs about ability shape motivation, resilience, and performance. Her findings are direct and well replicated. In a series of studies with children ranging from kindergarten age to 5th grade, Dweck's team gave children a nonverbal IQ test consisting of moderately challenging problems. After the children performed well, 1/3 received intelligence praise. For instance, "You must be smart at this." 1/3 received effort praise. "You must have tried really hard." And a control group received neutral feedback. The children praised for intelligence entered what Dweck defined as a fixed mindset. They shield away from challenges. They lost motivation when tasks became difficult. They reported they would cheat on future tests. The children praised for effort, however, sought harder challenges and persisted for much longer. The implications extend to very young kids. Studies at Stanford's Bing Nursery School found that children as young as 3.5, when given personal praise like, "You are a good drawer," became unwilling to take on difficulty and unable to cope with it. They internalized failure as identity. They concluded that making mistakes meant they were no good. A longitudinal study conducted in collaboration with the University of Chicago showed that children who received process praise as toddlers, directed at effort, strategy, and persistence rather than innate qualities, would display resilience and a desire for challenge 5 years later. The connection to children's filmmaking here is structural. The power was inside you all along trope is functionally identical to person praise. It tells children that the obstacle to their potential is insufficient self-belief, not insufficient effort, strategy, or skill. When America Chavez goes from zero mastery to precision control through a moment of self-belief, the narrative models a fixed mindset. The message is, you already have everything you need. You just need to realize it. Dweck's research and the research of others here, because this is a pretty big topic being studied, demonstrates that this message and messages like it produce fragility. Hollywood has systematically chosen this as its foundation for storytelling, with visual stimulation and spectacle as a means of motivation to get you to go to the theater. And it goes further than that too. A 2024 systemic review published in the Journal of Psychiatric and Mental Health Nursing synthesized peer-reviewed studies on the impact of storytelling interventions on resilience in children. The review's conclusion was unambiguous here. Storytelling plays a crucial role in the development of protective factors in children, including resilience. They found here that storytelling provides opportunities for expression, rumination, and cognitive processing, contributing to how a kid processes their own views of the world. The review found that storytelling directly helps children manage emotions, resolve conflicts, and improve their own coping skills, meaning that when a kid watches Mufasa die in The Lion King and then watches Simba run from the responsibility of confronting that loss, the child processes feelings of grief and the cost of refusing to grow. When a child watches the Iron Giant choose self-sacrifice, the child is forced to process moral courage and the possibility that being a hero requires deliberate choice. Stories and films of today offer no such confrontation. Every consequence is routinely reversed, every villain is defanged, every resolution comes through self-belief rather than earned struggle, providing nothing for any viewer's minds to process, regardless of age. There is no catharsis, because there is no genuine loss. There is no moral reasoning, because there is no genuine moral dilemma. We're all just happy and entertained, like eating Pop-Tarts or Fruit Loops. They're tasty, but they're nutritionally not great, and too much of it is bad for you. Now, I often say there are 5 people who are ruining entertainment: corporate executives, marketers, journalists, content creators, and the writers. Well, this decline in narrative substance it's actually multifaceted, because of course it would be. Part of it is structural, and that's mostly because of the corporate executives. The modern studio development pipeline filters out risk at every single stage. Scripts pass through rounds of executive notes, test audience feedback, brand consultation, and international market analysis. Anything challenging or ambiguous or potentially upsetting will get sanded down. The result is a product optimized for inoffensiveness rather than any kind of impact. Trying to appeal to an international market also compounds this. Studios now build family films for simultaneous global release. Films that are dialogue-heavy, culturally specific, or any kind of morally complex translate difficultly and cost a lot more to market throughout the world, whereas things that are visual spectacles translate easier everywhere. Now, there is the other side to this. The writers, of course. Remember our discussion earlier on C.S. Lewis and the depth of the writer's life translating to their ability to write? The power was inside you all along is exactly the type of platitude Lewis was warning us about. It sounds meaningful, it tests well with audiences, it offends no one, except me, and it arises from no genuine philosophical conviction about how human beings grow, struggle, fail, and ultimately become worthy of the challenges they have faced. The structural pipeline explains how substance has been filtered out, But the philosophical question and what remains is a creative culture that defaults to affirmation because it has no deeper framework to offer. The writers and executives producing these stories are not failing to execute a vision because the only vision available to this system has optimized for commercial safety at the expense of genuine human insight. This is the rot. And if you ask enough questions, you will find that the motivations behind the rot lean somewhere between malice towards the audience and incompetence in talent. A slow hollowing out, where the people making today's stories no longer have, or are no longer permitted to, express a meaningful philosophy about what people need to hear. The result is a body of work that flatters viewers rather than challenges them. It tells them they are already complete, instead of showing them what completion actually costs. I mean, hey, one of the clearest indicators of the philosophical collapse is the disappearance of genuine antagonists from filmmaking. We used to get definitive villains before, and even when the villain is just the hero of the other side, we were shown why they were wrong, villainous, and flawed. Modern family films have systematically dismantled the villains. The approach now is the twist villain, where either a character is revealed as an antagonist in the third act with a very minimal build-up and no thematic weight, or the villain is a sympathetic character that is just misunderstood. Villains today are comic relief, bumbling and unthreatening, existing to be mocked rather than overcome. Without a genuine threat, the hero's journey is hollow. There is nothing to overcome, so the overcoming means nothing. A viewer watching a protagonist defeat a joke villain learns nothing about courage in the face of real opposition. C.S. Lewis understood this. Narnia contained the White Witch. She was cruel and she was wicked and turned creatures into stone. She killed Aslan the lion. Lewis wrote the Chronicles of Narnia for children. He gave children a villain worthy of the heroes who would face the witch, because he believed that children who encountered evil in stories would be better prepared to encounter them in life. But if removing villains wasn't enough, we also find the new films don't let bad things happen, and if they do, they don't let them stay happened. In The Lion King, Mufasa dies and remains dead. Sure, he appears as a spectral sky guardian, but he is still dead. There have been many sequels, and Mufasa has remained deceased in the Lion King canon. This means his death stands for something. It's pivotal that Mufasa must die, so that Simba can rise from it. If Mufasa returns, it undoes everything Simba has had to overcome to become the aforementioned Lion King. Modern children's films compulsively reverse consequences. Fake-out deaths have become a standard. Characters appear to sacrifice themselves and are revealed minutes later to have survived. Magical undoing erases the stakes retroactively. The audience is given the emotional stimulus of loss only temporarily because the writers and executives don't actually want to commit and create a friction for audiences to be forced to struggle with. And so stakes are not real. Sacrifice is costless in these stories. Failure can always be undone. This is the narrative equivalent of telling a child they are smart rather than telling them they worked hard. You see how the dynamic shifts in the messaging? Even Stranger Things writers didn't have the courage to challenge audiences with the death of Eleven at the end of the series. Just as we see Eleven sacrifice herself for a narratively stupid reason, whoa now, don't worry audiences, she's alive in Mike's ridiculous D&D story. The writer's failure to commit to an ending robbed the viewers of the finality of consequence. Now, we can keep defining problem after problem, and there are plenty more here, believe me, but the reality is, the economic incentive to improve will not come from within the studios for as long as theme park movies continue making billions of dollars at the box office. No, the pressure must come from you, must come from the audiences, it must come from parents, educators, people with a voice, and you especially, people who understand what is being lost and need to demand better. You need to articulate clearly and specifically what better means, and I just went through a whole bunch of it here in this video. And if the major studios refuse, which they will, the gap must be filled. The tools for creation and distribution are more accessible now today than they have ever been, and growing weekly. Independent creators and small studios can produce work that respect a viewer's intelligence. You can too. The audience is underserved, and they are waiting. Consider this. One of the most profound quotes, perhaps in all of cinema, is, "I see now that the circumstance of one's birth are irrelevant. It is what you do with the gift of life that determines who you are." That is from Pokémon. Yes, Pokémon, the first movie, 1998. Do you know what kind of quotes live in the minds of audiences today?
Chicken jockey!
Until next time, create, innovate, inspire others to do so as well, and for the love of God, cancel Disney Plus.